I've seen firsthand what benefits come to a person's life when they have healthy relationships in their life. And the reason why I start with talking about people with healthy relationships is because I personally didn't have healthy dynamics growing up, and neither did most of the people around me. Most of the people that I grew up with, a lot of the guys that I still hang out with to today, guys that I would call my best friends, my brothers, we didn't have healthy upbringings. If anything, they were very toxic. Whether it was drugs or gangs or whatever whatever trials come with living in the hood. But I've also seen on the flip side what it's like when kids have two loving parents in the household, when they have supportive parents, loving parents that give their children the opportunity to have trial and error with their life, fuck up, and have a safety net to fall back on, have a crutch that they can lean back on that gives them more confidence to navigate through life when they're young. And when you look at people that are kind of just able to shut their brains off and just try something, just don't think about it, just do it, just execute. These people that are just able to execute effortlessly, it not in a non-negative manner. There's a bit of ignorance there because they don't have to think that if I do this thing, what are the implications, the consequences of this action? What is the domino effect that this action could possibly have? They don't have to do that. Whereas I feel as if one of the reasons why I personally get into this analysis paralysis situation. What the hell's going on with my mustache? Why I get into this analysis paralysis situation is because I didn't have that safety net. So for me, when I want to take a risk, when I want to do something, I have to think of the implications that it can have in other facets of my life. I have to think about the consequences that could transpire if this doesn't work. And as a result, it's made me very hesitant to just try new things. Because if I fuck up, who am I going to go to? And my best friend, we essentially grew up together. A couple summers ago, he got the opportunity of a lifetime. He went down to Florida to move in with his uncle, or to move his uncle into his new crib, and then just had an opportunity to take up a job that me and him used to sit until 2 a.m. talking about in my car, where we're talking about our lives, our aspirations, the things we want to do. He had an opportunity to take a job that was very aligned with the goals that we would sit there and talk about all the time. So he was only going to go down there for like, I think maybe it was a week. But he never came back. He never came back because he just took that chance, and he had no one to fall back on. Even actually, let me not talk about his personal life too much. Let's just say this homie really had to figure it out by himself. I'm not gonna talk about your shit, Casey. I promise. But I look at that. I look at his ability to just say fuck it and do it scared. Because sometimes I sit there and I think about that, and I couldn't say that I would do the same thing in that situation. I feel like in the situations, if I was put in that situation, I think I would have crumbled. I think I would have folded. I don't think I would have taken it. And I would have come back to where we live. We're from Atlanta. So if I would have come back to Atlanta to the same familiar hell, that I wouldn't have been able to take that leap of faith. But I look at Casey, and he was able to do it. And he's living his best life because of it. He hit the things that we used to talk about that we don't want to be able to stress about, he no longer has to stress about. And I love that for him. I absolutely love that for him. But I don't even know if this is a conversation I've really had with him before, but his immediate switch flip, if you may, like he just flipped a switch and just took that chance. It seems like, from my perspective, he didn't think about the consequences, that implication circle. He just did it. And I find that very interesting because we grew up very similar. And we used to talk about this idea that, we don't have anyone to fall back on if we fuck up. And I look at how he was able to do this, and I kind of try and implement it to myself and my own goals, my own aspirations. And it's funny because I had always told him and some of my other friends that, it'd be pretty cool to get in front of a camera and talk. I feel like I got a lot of shit that I could share. And my friend's like, you're also kind of funny. Like, you could do some little something in front of a camera. But my mind was immediately going to, okay, well, if I do that, then what is this person going to think? What is this group of people going to think? What are these people going to say? People that I'm not going to speak to in 5 years. People that I don't even want to go out of my way and speak to when I go to school or when I go to all these places. I don't even want to talk to these people. But I'm worried about what they're going to think of me. And I'm glad that I got to a point where I was kind of able to embody that just fuck it mentality and just start. And I think Casey takes a lot of credit for that because I kind of took it after him. But the main topic of this video is talking about what happens when you don't grow up in that type of environment. Like, the title of this video is going to be called The Absence of Healthy Relationships. I want to talk about what that does, especially as a child in your developmental years. What does that do? And it does a lot more than I think people lead on. And what I mean by that is that your most developmental years as a child is from ages 1 to, I think it's either 8 or 9, but it's, well, for the sake of argument, we'll say 1 to 9. So these are the years where a child is most impressionable by their parents and by their environment. So when you see people now in their late teens, 20s, 30s with self-esteem issues, self-confidence issues, self-worth issues, these all stem back to how they were treated as a child. And I can't speak for any of my friends, but for me, I grew up every single day with my father telling me I wasn't going to do shit with my life. He genuinely thought I was going to be a bum. And he reminded me of that every single day until he finally kicked us out of the crib. And anything that I ever did as a kid was for me to just try to seek his approval. And it was never enough. He always moved that fucking goalpost. So no matter what I did, no matter what I accomplished, which is crazy because as a kid, my teachers thought I was going to be the next Einstein. I'm not even just trying to say that to stroke my ego. I mean, I learned multiplication when I was 4 years old. I was doing college algebra at 8. I was competing in state level math competitions. I had some impressive things to, I guess, from an academic perspective. Was never enough for him. And I'll also be honest, those things weren't by choice. I was kind of forced to pick those things up. I had to. Either that or face the music. I'll leave that up to interpretation. But even to this day, I'm 21 now. I struggle a lot with self-belief, with self-worth, self-value. I don't feel like I'm worthy of the things that I have achieved. I don't think I'm capable of reaching the levels that I do want to achieve. And it's left me in this paralysis state. And it's really, really hard to challenge that voice every single day, every second of the day when I wake up. Because that voice in my head is just telling me to give up. That voice in my head is telling me, this shit is pointless, your pops was right, call it a day. And I don't know. I tell my friends that I I think the biggest thing that's holding me back to get to the levels that I want to achieve is my mind. It is my lack of self belief. And it kind of goes back to that thing where I said earlier, the people that just try shit out and see if it sticks, that were given that sense of comfort from their family that they can just try things and fail. I think it comes back to that. Because again, it's that blissful ignorance. You know what I mean? It's just they don't have to think about it. They don't struggle with that self belief because they were conditioned to believe growing up that it's okay to fail as long as you just get back up and try again. Whereas me, if I fell short, it was the end of the world. And it was consequences that a lot of y'all wouldn't be able to fathom. And that's trickled into every other aspect of my life. That anytime something doesn't even go remotely the way that I wish that it could go, I just self-destruct. And it's also made me a very anxious person. So when I was a kid, I got diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety, as well as PTSD from my childhood and everything that happened. But one thing that I think about a lot is my anxiety. Because it's funny, when I was younger, my anxiety wasn't as bad, but my depressive episodes were a lot worse. But now, as I get older, I have a lot better control on my depressive episodes, being able to control that level of deep sadness. But now my anxiety is so much worse. And my anxiety almost entirely lives in the future. What if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? What if I'm not able to do this? What if I'm not able to do that? It all lies in the future. It's very rare that I look back on a situation or I look back in time and I get anxiety from something in the past. It's very rare. I can't even think of a specific situation off the top of my head right now. But it's all in the future. And usually when it comes to people's anxiety, it's one or the other. Or sometimes it'll be the mix of both. But usually your anxiety is never in the present. I kind of make the argument it's impossible to have anxiety in the present because you're living in it. You're living it, you're experiencing it, you're seeing it for yourself. It's hard to have anxiety when you know what's going on, right? Because your anxiety lies in the unknown of the what ifs or the I wishes, right? Like those are the places where your anxiety lies. So as I've gotten older, I've grown deeper and deeper into this hole of future anxieties. And it all comes back to this idea that I don't feel like I'm capable of reaching the levels that I want to reach. And one thing I'm trying to work on is sitting with this uneasy feeling. And one thing that my therapist and I talked about was threshold of emotions. And when we're talking about threshold of emotion, we're talking about how long can you tolerate, withstand a certain feeling or emotion before it becomes too much, right? That's what threshold is, right? It's an upper bound of something. So in the case of emotion, your threshold is what is your upper bound of how much emotion you can handle. And for me growing up, there are certain emotions that I was exposed to so much that I have a high threshold for. And that I was constantly in and having to handle, therefore I have a higher threshold. For example, stress. I can handle stress very well because it's very rare I get overwhelmed. Let me just put it that way. Because I've had so much shit going on at the same time. It's very rare for me to get overwhelmed. Anger is another one. I had a really bad anger issues growing up. My father had terrible anger issues. And he was a very distant parent as well. So, not only regulating, dealing, navigating his emotion, but also mine. So when it comes to anger, I'm okay sitting with anger. And my lash outs when I'm angry are nowhere near the same as what they were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was a hothead. I was angry. I'm taking it out one way or another. Someone's going to get their ass beat. Someone's going to get yelled at, get disrespected, or like I just shut off. Now I don't do that as much. There's still times where I will do that. There's a couple of things that can push me to that level to where, I don't know, that feeling kind of comes back. But overall, it's pretty contained. But the one emotion that I cannot sit with, that I'm trying to sit with, and that if I'm able to sit with, I will become a much better person is uneasiness. Uneasiness of my career. My uneasiness of my academics. My uneasiness of people's perception of me. Whatever that may be, those are where my anxieties lie. If I post this, if I do this, if I go here, what is this person going to think? What is that group going to think? What is the public perception going to be of me if I do this? If I'm not able to get this grade, then what about my further education goals? What about my career goals? If I can just sit with that uneasiness and not just sit with it, but also accept the reality of those situations, that they're out of my control. So not only sit here and say, I am feeling this uneasiness, I am feeling this anxiety, but the more that I sit with it and the more that I try and control myself, the higher my threshold will be. So now when I run into situations like this in the future, I'll be able to handle it a lot better. That's the first part. And the second part is that when I'm able to accept the fact that I don't have control of these outcomes, that also helps alleviate your anxiety. Because you can only do so much. I don't know if y'all heard that. I don't know. You can only control so much before you just have to accept the fact that this is out of your hands. So being able to handle those two things, I feel like will help me immensely with this idea of my self-belief. And this all stems back to I wasn't given this luxury of stability, emotional stability as a kid. So now I'm having to learn it all by myself now. And now that when I'm able to learn it, adopt it, implement it for myself now, that I will be able to pass that on. Hopefully I'll find a partner that'll also be on the same page as me, and that we're able to give this to our children. That way they don't have to deal with these same struggles that I have had to deal with. I'll hike and lost my train of thought. But yeah, that's the yap and the reflection I have for you today. Is I'm now trying to develop those I'm trying to develop those foundations to be able to now work from a place of stability that I wasn't given as a child. So now I'm having to do a lot more work, but eventually I'll get to the same destination as everybody else. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe. Socials are in the link tree in the description. Check it out. Y'all take it easy.